Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 historical romances. Honestly, this was super hard. I am currently participating in the Romance Readathon for the month of August, and in Discord somebody brought up an idea of doing like our top 10 historical romances. For that readathon you do get extra points for reading historical, so I thought that would be a really fun idea. So it should be a collab. I'm not sure how many people are going to be doing it, but once they post those videos, I will try to link them down below, so you can check out their videos as well. Honestly, I had a super hard time narrowing this down to 10. I wanted to do like 2 videos at like 8 per video, but I decided I will try and narrow it down to 10. So this was super hard for me. But these are 10 of my top. I still have a lot of other, like I think 8 other ones I wanted to bring up, but I will probably maybe do another part 2 video or something of my other ones that I want to bring up. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. Hopefully I don't talk too long because it's 10 books and I tend to ramble. So we'll try to make this quick. So I got to start with my OG, and that is the first historical romance I ever read, and that is just special to me. It's kind of crazy that I read this when I was in junior high, because it's back in the bodice ripper type of time where it's pretty non-consent, like dubious consent kind of stuff. Maybe that's from where my dark romance love comes, but I am talking about The Wolf and the Dove by Kathleen E. Woodiwiss. This was my favorite book, like historical romance. I love it. It's very dark, got some very dark subject matter in this, but I don't know why, I just love it so much. This is probably the book I've reread the most in my life because it's very nostalgic to me. I can go back to this book and just go back to that feeling that I had as a kid first reading this. And I know it's pretty crazy because there is literally like sexual assault on the page in here. So it's pretty dark for a young teen to be reading, but I loved it. So this is Wolf and the Dove. This is between Wulfgar and Aislinn, and he's like a Norman, I believe. He's the wolf from Normandy, and he's basically conquering her area, and his people come conquer her, little town, and take it over. Her mom ends up getting, like, her father dies, I believe. Her mom gets raped. She gets attacked, and she's sexually assaulted by one of his, because Wolf is not there yet. Wulfgar is not there. But one of his top men, I think his name is Ragnar, I can't remember, but he's horrible, and he basically sees her and wants her, and he sexually assaults her. And then Wulfgar comes in later and is like, well, no, she's gonna be mine, and basically takes her from him. So he's very upset, and so she's furious. She's watching her mom like lose her sanity from what's happened to her, watching everybody be ruled by these Norman people. She's a Saxon, she hates them, and she's basically trying to fight him every step of the way, but he's not taking it. He basically like owns her ass, and he wants her. So it's a very push and pull dynamic. It's a very captor-captive type of romance. I might have to add this to my other captor-captive romance video I was going to do. But it is amazing. Like, they slowly like start falling for each other, and like, it's just, I don't know why, I just love this one so much. It's always going to be deep in my heart. I love it. I kind of want to reread it again to see if it holds up. I haven't read it for a really long time, so I'm probably missing a lot of stuff in here, but it's a really great read. Okay, the next book that I have is one of my favorite heroes, and that is Devil in Winter, and this is Sebastian St. Vincent. I'm sure if you know Lisa Kleypas, you know Sebastian St. Vincent. He's one of my favorite heroes. He started out in this series as a total cad user, like he's kind of like the villain in the previous book, but he ends up, you know, being the hero in this and really turning around, and you really fall in love with his character and watch him like have so much more to him than you really thought he was. He ends up kind of Evie, who's this wallflower. This is in the Wallflower series, by the way. I think this is book 3. And Evie's basically kind of held captive by her family. Her father's the owner of this gambling den, and he's sick, and she doesn't get to see him. And they're trying to like force her to marry like a cousin, and she's this very meek, like stuttering, kind of a shy wallflower. She goes to St. Vincent's house in the middle of the night, and knows that like from what happened in the previous book, like he tried to like kidnap, kind of marry a chick, one of her friends. And so she knows he's like not in a good place. He kind of needs a wife with money and all that kind of stuff. So she goes and proposes to him that like, hey, let's go get married. And, you know, you can do your thing. I just want to go be with my father. So they go and they have this little road trip to go get married. And then they go back to her father, and her father is very sick. He's dying. And Sebastian St. Vincent kind of sees how the place is not being ran very well after this. And he starts to like man up. This guy who's all of privilege and about being this dandy and like rogue, you know, he ends up kind of taking on the responsibility and being there for Evie. And he's very like, he falls for her. He like puts his life on the line for her. And I just love their dynamic. Like, they're so beautiful together. And then as you continue with Lisa Kleypas, you will see these characters in other books. And I love just seeing St. Vincent still gone for Evie, like at an older age, and they have kids, and I just love it. So St. Vincent is like one of my favorites. And the next one that I have is actually an author I just discovered this year. I can't believe it because they're like now one of my favorite historical authors. Obviously, I need to go back in their backlist big time, but that is Stacy Reid's Matter of Temptation. I just read this for this year. It's a 6-star read. I loved it because Stacy Reid is just so great at character growth and like writing like a different kind of historical romance than you're used to. This one has an amazing setup. We have Mina. Her brother kind of gets them in a rough spot. They have a lot of loans. They're really in trouble financially, and he ends up gambling against the Earl of Crestwick, which is Simon, our hero, and kind of accuse him of cheating and all of that. And so they're going to have a duel. So she freaks out because she knows her brother is going to lose this duel and die. So she kind of like, one of the maids, I think, kind of like drugs him, and he passes out, and she goes in his place dressed as a man, and she fights Simon, and she's actually winning. She does a great job, and Simon realizes it's a woman, and he's so fascinated. So he ends up offering her a job. So what I found really interesting is that Simon was very different. He's very mercurial. He almost seems like he could be neurodivergent. He's very intellectual and thinks with that side of his brain, like that part of his brain, he's very like different. So he's not all about getting women and partying and all this stuff. He's doing important work. And Mina ends up working for him, and then it ends up being this big like travel for her to go to his place. So he ends up being like, that doesn't make sense, just stay at my place. And so she ends up staying there, and he just respects her so much. And I just love the slow build of like him respecting her mind and her opinions, and him being like so not interested in any of that kind of stuff, but interested in her for some reason. He's just so attracted to her. There's this amazing carriage scene where they almost get robbed, and he's so alpha, and it's just such a great scene. And I really loved it. It was such a great, unique read, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so my next one I have is another Lisa Kleypas. I have quite a few Lisa Kleypas on here, so I'm sorry, but she's one of my favorite historical authors. She really rarely does any wrong, honestly, to me. But this is, again, another one of my favorites, and this is Devil in Disguise. And it's just It's really awesome. So this one's a little bit different of a setup. We have Merritt Sterling. She's actually a widow. And she's running like her husband's like shipping company. And she basically has this run-in with this Scottish, sexy, I think he was like a whiskey, I think he was selling whiskey, and basically things kind of get damaged and messed up with his shipment, and he goes in all angry, and they totally hit it off. And she's very forward and very interested in getting it on with Keir. And things are a little bit dangerous for Keir. For some reason, his life might be in danger. And so they have like an instant connection, like almost gonna get at it like right away. I mean, she's a widow, she ain't no virgin, she's gonna go after it. But he gets attacked and kind of like loses his memory a little bit. But they have built such a beautiful connection. And then if you know anything about Devil and Lisa Kleypas, you know which family usually that kind of is centering around. So that brings in another character that I love so much into this book, and it is just so beautiful. I love reading like a woman that's not the virgin. I like good widow romance. For the Romance Readathon, I'm in the Seductress team, which is like the widow. So I absolutely love this one. It is such a great read, and anytime we have a devil, I'm into it. Okay, so this historical romance is a lot different than my other ones. It is definitely dark. It's dark, 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 and it's Sea of Ruin. This is one of my favorite books. I just read it this year. It's a 6-star read. It is so beautiful, but dark. Just check your triggers in this. There is sexual assault on page. So there's a lot of violent stuff because this does center around a female pirate. And she is actually on the run from her pirate husband, who they've been kind of estranged for 2 years. He's been chasing her down because of reasons. She thinks he betrayed her, and he kind of did. He loved somebody else, and she found a love letter, and so she ended things with him, kind of left him. But as he catches up with her and is finally having their confrontation, they end up getting chased down by a pirate hunter, Ashley Cutler. And Ashley Cutler takes her, and he's going to send her back to London to get hanged. So Bennett has to do anything that she will do to basically survive, distract him. She'll use her body. She'll use her wits. She's one of the strongest heroines I've ever read in a book. This is a little spicy because it does include 2 men, and they're all involved in this story. So but just be prepared, because this isn't like a sweet historical romance. This is very dark, but it's one of my favorite romances. I cried so much in just the first 30 minutes of like 30 pages of this book. I was bawling. So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for something a little bit different, a little darker. It's a really great pirate romance. It's perfect. And then I have a couple more Lisa Kleypas. So this one I'm sure you've heard of. It's one of the most hyped books, and that is Dreaming of You by Lisa Kleypas. This is Derek Craven. He's one of the most hyped heroes in historical romance, I think. I loved him a lot in this. He's very broody, angry guy that had to work his way up from like being left in the gutter by his mother to being like this club owner, and he's very rich. And he's ruthless, and he does not want anything to do with love or anything. So then you have Sarah Fielding, and she's actually an author. She ends up, she'll go down to like these bad areas and kind of to the club area, because she's writing books about like prostitutes and the women that live like that. And so she actually happens to be out like researching that, and she happens to see these guys try and kill him. She saves him, which was badass. And then so she wants to be able to kind of have free reign at his club and to investigate it, use it as, you know, she can interview people and kind of see the reality of club living. And so he doesn't want anything to do with her, but he can't help himself. He's very broody, very like, but he is, once he's gone for her, he's gone for her. So I really did love this. I love Derek Craven. He's definitely a great alpha hero for you. And then the opposite of basically Derek Craven and Lisa Kleypas books is Cam from Mine Till Midnight. This is like one of my favorite books. Here's the step back. This book is kind of like falling apart, but there's the step back. But basically he helped run the club, Evie's Club, from Devil in Winter. So we met him in that book. And in this, he's going to end up running into Amelia. And Amelia is basically, this is part of the Hathaway series. I believe it's the first book. And she's kind of trying to wrangle this family together, that they're kind of a chaotic mess. And her brother is getting into trouble at these clubs and stuff. So she ends up showing up at the club and getting her brother. And Cam is just blown away by this. Like, it's so dangerous. Like, don't do this. And he is like instantly, like, he falls first. Like, he wants her. And they kind of run into each other again because she lives like near where this guy lives from the Wallflower series, which you'll meet in there. He's friends with St. Vincent and all that. So Cam happens to stay up there, and Cam basically takes on this family. And he's just so like, he's a cinnamon roll hero, but he's so alpha. He's just so badass, and he is so good to Amelia. And they're just this beautiful couple that is just, it's just very heartwarming. I love this book so much. I just think it's such a classic, and Cam is just so hot, and I love him. And then I have another widow romance, The Earl Takes All by Lorraine Heath. I love Lorraine Heath because she does write like darker, sexier historical romances and kind of gives you crazy setups that she somehow makes work, which she does in this book. And this book is kind of crazy because she's a widow. She just doesn't really know she's a widow because her husband ends up dying, but he asks his twin brother to kind of pretend to be him when he goes home because she is pregnant and he doesn't want her to lose the baby. I believe she had issues before. I can't remember. I haven't read it for a long time. But he ends up going home and posing as his brother, and they fall in love with, and she's like, he's acting different. This is just weird. But he falls for her, and it's just, how are we going to get through this where her finding out it's him? And then, like, I think there was a thing at the law at the time, you can't marry your brother's wife. So it's kind of this crazy setup, and I just thought it was so unique. It's a really, really good one, and I really want to do a reread of this series because I haven't read this in a really long time. So my last two are from the same author. I also just discovered her this year. I did a vlog reading Joanna Shupe for the first time, so I'll try to remember to link that down below if you're interested. I ended up reading this whole series in that vlog, so it's a pretty long vlog. But I read Joanna Shupe, The Lady Gets Lucky. This is the second book in that series, and the Fifth Avenue Rebels. And it was amazing. I hated the first book, but this book is just perfection. You have Kit, and I'm sorry, what is her name? Alice Lusk. So Kit, this is a like lessons in seduction book. They end up meeting kind of at this party that takes place in the first book. And Alice kind of propositions him. She shows up at his room in the middle of the night because she's having trouble finding a husband. And she needs help figuring out how to do that, how to flirt, how to talk to men. And so she goes up to his room in the middle of the night and like propositions him to teach her. And then those lessons end up getting a little bit more, like, obviously. But he doesn't want to do it at first. He's reluctant. He doesn't want to do that. And he's been told to stay away from her or any of these girls. And he decides to do it because he's opening up this kind of like interesting restaurant, like, and he needs a good cook. And she knows this, basically like kind of like a Michelin star chef, and she knows his recipes. So she said she could hook him up with those, but he would have to give her a lesson for each recipe. So then starts the lessons in seduction, and Kit is kind of like this playboy, wild guy that's just viewed as very surface level like that by others, but there's a lot more to him. And he was just so sexy and swoony, and just his lessons with Alice, they were so adorable together, and I loved it. And then my like favorite book, I loved it so much, I think I gave this 6 stars, and that is The Duke Gets Even. You met the Duke in the first book in that series because he was set to marry the heroine in that. Obviously, things didn't work out. He, a couple more times, is supposed to have marriages happen, but it's not working out for him. So he ends up kind of still searching for this wife. He's a Duke from London, and he really needs a wife with money. He needs an heiress to save his family and their situation. And so he ends up having this interaction at that same party from the first book with Nellie. And Nellie's this kind of like wild child. She doesn't want to marry. She does whatever she wants. She has rendezvous with men. And they kind of meet each other. They have this interaction where she's like swimming naked out, gonna rendezvous with a man, and she ends up running into him, and they totally hit it off. And he basically wants to invite her back to his place, but they don't. And then she finds out the next day that he was supposed to be marrying one of her friends. So that kind of gave her a bad taste in her mouth, and things didn't work out. And then they just keep running into each other now in the current timeline in the story. And they end up kind of having this affair, and he is just so gone for her and wants her, and she's just so scared of marriage and that kind of commitment, and then would have to move to London and all that kind of stuff. I just loved it so much. It's so sexy. That's the thing with Joanna Shupe. She writes super sexy historical romance, so I definitely recommend this. Sorry if my ring light's hitting that. You know, it's such a perfect book. I love it so much. So that is my 10 romances, historical romances that I have for my top 10. I'll probably be coming up with a second video for like 8 or so more because I was just having a good time putting together this list. Thank you so much for watching. If you can, please like and subscribe, and then I will start leaking some of those videos once they start posting their top 10 historical romances. As always, thank you, and I will see you on the next one.